Hello, and welcome to my thought on Sunday. And I'm actually doing it on Sunday. I'm doing it on Sunday. Um, I'm fascinated with the Danish concept of Hygge. Hygge, that's how you pronounce it. It's coziness. And I find living in London that the English are very self-contained. And you go into their homes, which are exquisite. I've never been in an English home that wasn't just lovely, but it's not very cozy. And before the lockdown, people spent so much time running to theater, to the pub, to somewhere, that they didn't really spend that much time at home. But I think the lockdown has given us an opportunity to know how to make our lives cozy. One of the things that I love is I will walk into a room and there'll be a television set there with television on. And that isn't cozy. That's people watching someone else. When you come to my house, of course, I don't have a couch, but I'm planning to get one. But you just connect with each other. And the Danish idea is lots and lots of candlelight, which I love, lots and lots of dressing in warm, casual clothes, and lots of good conversation. One of the things they say, and I love good conversation. I love conversation. If you've never read David Foster Wallace, you must read him. He is unbelievably perceptive. And the things he talks about are things that we don't talk about. They're things that make you think and make you wonder at what we've accepted and what we've allowed to happen. And I love that kind of conversation. For example, I am now reading Consider the Lobster. And he is talking about the fact that to eat a lobster, you have to boil it while it's alive. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I used to live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and lots of lobsters in the East Coast, and lobsters are delicious. But after I read that, I started thinking, do we have a moral imperative not to create pain and not to create discomfort and disharmony in living things? And it's something to talk about and to think about, because many of us are carnivores. I eat chicken and fish. That involves killing those animals. And I'm thinking, is that being compassionate and kind? So getting back to Hygge and the Danish idea, the idea of people gathering together, sitting in a warm room with the fire going, and a candlelight, and a glass of wine, or a glass of hot chocolate, or maybe cider, and talking about the human condition. I think that now that we have been in lockdown, where we've learned to appreciate being at home and making our house into a home. And I remember our house. We lived at 40 Burkhead Place. And although we moved to 4310 Northmore, 40 Burkhead Place was the house. And it was home. And it was the place where we gathered. And I remember we had a place called the Den, which is where the television was. But we didn't watch television that much. We mostly sat around and talked. And I think that that the art of conversation is what you need when you do Hygge. I think you need to develop the art of conversation. I'm very upset that now we're so afraid of strangers that we wear masks and we can't interact easily. Because I think that the Danish idea is a wonderful idea, and they say that the Danes are the happiest country, and I can see why, because they gather around a fire instead of going out to pubs and to theaters, although I'm sure they do that too, and they get to know one another. And lockdown has helped us get to know the people in our house. Now, I live alone, so I have gotten addicted to Zoom conversations. Now, it's not the same to talk to someone on a screen, but as I look back over lockdown, when I was out running from one place to another, I did not have that many conversations with people. But now I have a lot of conversations with people, and I have them on Zoom. And people who have families have conversations with one another. And one of the things that I love is every now and then I go to a Hasidic family that's a very religious Jewish family for the Sabbath. And remember, the women are separate from the men. They're involved with the men, but the worship, the men go to the synagogue, the women create the Sabbath evening, the dinner, and the service that goes with it. And that happens for most Jewish holidays. But with the Hasidim, the men are the only ones that go to the shul. And I go there, and the woman whose name is Hannah, who is lovely, always invites me over at sunset, where we light candles and make a prayer for the coming week and for the human condition. But then, instead of just sitting down then and eating, we don't do that. We sit and we wait for the men to come home, and we chat. And we chat about what we think about. We've talked very often about how cruel the world is and insensitive the world is becoming. We talk a little bit about their new cat, which is lovely. We talk about the girls. She has 6 children at home. Remember, the families are very, very large. She had 11 children, but 6 are at home. And we talk about politics. We talk about the advantages of, I call it welfare, benefits, whether by giving someone benefits, but by giving them benefits, we squelch their desire to work. And in a way, I guess we do. We talk about, the last time I was there, we talked about a little girl. Well, I don't know if she was little or not. She was 18 or 19, and she committed suicide. And this had a profound effect on Hannah's 3 daughters, especially one called Didi, because she was trying to think, what would happen? Where do we have to be in our lives where we are in such despair that we are willing to take our own life? And for these young, and we're doing all this talking while we're waiting for the men to come home. Now, the boys were there. It was just the father and one son at that time, and then the other one, and then they rotated, and then they came. And it was just wonderful just to have conversation. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't petty. It wasn't catty. It was just conversation. And I'm thinking of then about 40 Burkhead Place, because for me, I've lived in many houses, but I've only had 2 homes. One was 40 Burkhead Place. That was where I lived from the time I was 8 until I was 24, 25, with time out for a marriage and time out for college and time out for a year of teaching. But that was my home. And it was a wonderful house. It was a wonderful house. It had a screened-in front porch where we sat outside in the summer heat and avoided the insects, and it had a fireplace that my mother never used, but was there, and a large bay window where we could sit, and I could sit there and wait for my dates to come and pick me up. Had a beautiful phonograph where I could listen to music, and I took dance lessons with a man named Glenn. I remember, because the living room was so large, I had huge parties there where the high school students would come over, my friends, and we would do things like a taffy pull or a slumber party. It was a home. And then when I was 54, I moved into my very own home that I bought in 441 Brighton. And in that home, I had sliding doors to a garden. The garden in front I cannot mow the lawn, and the garden in front was designed by a young man named Sean Garone, who got leukemia. And when he got leukemia, he said, and he was a teacher, and he got leukemia, and he said, you realize suddenly when you get a terminal illness that life is not forever. And he said, I don't want to teach. I want to garden. And his mother, who was actually his stepmother, was appalled. She said, you have to teach because they give you fringe benefits and you get free insurance and you get all the things you're going to need because you have, I've given you the wrong disease that he had. He had, it wasn't lupus, it was leukemia. It was leukemia. He said, you have leukemia and you're going to need that. And he said, no. He said, I don't know how much life I have left, and I want a garden. So he quit teaching and got out of the hospital, emaciated. I remember how thin he was. And he took landscape gardening at San Francisco University. We don't hear much about San Francisco University. It's a wonderful Catholic-based school, really marvelous, and they have a very good course in landscape gardening. And for his final exam, he designed my front yard. And I think I had something like 21 roses. I had calla lilies, I had daisies, I had flowers all year round when he did it. But that was a home. And when I came to England, I got the sense, especially in London, that nobody lived in their home very much. They didn't have that sense of comfort, that wonderful warmth. But now, because of the lockdown, I think they're doing it. And this thought is just a thought about how important it is to bring back coziness and a sense of sitting around the fire with a hot drink or an alcoholic one and chatting with friends. And thank you so much. This is just a short little thought about Hygge, the Danish idea of comfort and coziness. But I encourage you to try it for yourself. You're going to love it.